Welcome to DT Madness, Chronicles from the Third Life, episode 126, April 19th, 2025. So glad you could make it. It's from the backyard that you can really see it. I have 3 big oak trees on my whatever half acre of property. 2 in the front and 1 in the back. And from the backyard looking over the house, as I mentioned last time, everything is so vibrant. The pollen bombs have all but gone. And now the green leaves are filling out the trees and creating the shade and the, whispering breezes and all that kind of stuff. But from the backyard, when you look over the house and you see the 2 trees in the front, the one on the right, closest to our driveway, is not looking too swift. And that's a sad thing. Like, there's just a bunch of branches that aren't putting out any leaves, and the ones that are, all of them are growing. I think they're called suckers. I don't know that for sure, but like they're just little tiny stems that are growing right off the trunk, and no like new limbs being put out. And it's pretty stark from the back looking at it, and so. Man, it's my front porch tree. I love sitting on the front porch in the summer, especially, but really any time in our porch swing that we've got, and it's a covered porch. Like watching people drive by, waving at the people who always wave every single time. And that's the tree that's directly in front. That's the tree that's directly in my vision. So I've had many conversations with that tree over the past 21 years. And it's a witness tree. What has it seen? It's seen the kids playing in the front yard, blowing bubbles, drawing chalk, playing baseball, wiffle ball in the front. But as it is, this too shall pass, says the tree. So there's 2 options. There are 2 options that we had. I had my tree guy, my tree friend, one of them come over and take a look at it, and pretty much right away he said that it was definitely in decline, and that we could prune it back. Take the weight off, because one of the things we obviously don't want to happen is for it to fall on the house, or any of the big branches fall on cars or whatever. And so we could prune it all back, take the weight off of the side that is leaning towards the house, and that's the mostly dead side anyway. It's a big oak tree, an old oak tree. Old, man. And so it goes up in its base, and then kind of 2 huge trunks kind of split, and the one that's towards the house is in decline. I learned that there is sudden oak death, and I learned that there is, I forget what the first word is, but there is also oak decline. And those are things that happen. And so my tree guy was kind of like, yeah, there's probably an abscess in there, probably some type of something going on. And so we could prune it back, and then maybe it'll make it another year, maybe it'll make it another 10 years. Or we could just take the whole thing down. It's right over our power lines and everything too that come to our house. So I called out my other guy, the guy that trimmed my trees for me some years ago, and checked in with him, and he suggested that he wouldn't take the tree all the way down, that he would mulch the junk out of it. Like he would buy get some chips, get some wood chips or whatever, and put a whole bunch of mulch all the way out to the drip line and need some more topsoil. And a phrase that I've been reflecting on, he said, with trees, as above, so below. That if the limbs are dying, the tips are dying, then probably the roots are as well. And so putting some type of mulch, building up a huge layer of topsoil, and then making sure that it maintains its moisture, etc. But the more I got to looking at the tree and thinking and trying to visualize, like, what is it going to look like if we cut out the dead parts? And the second guy actually said, don't cut anything bigger than your leg in terms of diameter, because old trees are like old people. They don't recover all that well from surgery. And there's some pretty big cuts that need to be made to be able to remove the dead stuff. And by removing all of that stuff that's dead and dying, it's not going to look. It's going to look pretty raggedy, ratchet. So we talked about it and we decided we're just going to take the whole thing down and use the wood chips from that tree to really mulch up the other tree that's in the front yard. Obviously save a lot of those limbs for firewood that we can burn and celebrate that tree in our backyard. So y'all come over this fall. And so, but also I was like, all right, well, I'm going to get down to business, to the nitty gritty in the backyard, because that tree is my favorite tree. Like, it's really held its shape from the trimming that it took 10 years ago. Oh man, what did my friend Matt call it? He called it Frodo's playground or Bilbo's playground, something like that. Always a Rings reference. So I decided to really mulch that back tree and really begin to take care of it, and that turned into a thing where I wanted to make the whole thing look really nice and spend a bunch of time outside there this summer. So I called up a couple of places, or I had Sarah call up a couple of places, and found out that $40 a scoop for this place right down the road. There was one that was $35. I was going to have to drive back and forth a little bit, and maybe I could have got it cheaper, but I don't operate that way. So called him up. I'm like, okay, well, I'll be over. Wasn't sure how much, but whatever. Take care of my tree. I realize that I do have some insecurities when I got a bunch. You know about the DT madness, but I do have some insecurities when it comes to going to places like this where people have skills and know-how. That's it. It's not like blue collar or white collar. It's not anything like that. It's just that I don't know how to operate, a front end loader. I don't know how to do things. I don't know how to build things. I don't know how to, I'm lacking in those real world type, hand-to-hand type skills. I don't. And so when I show up, I think about what I'm going to wear, and I do, man. I really consider it before I go. A 47-year-old man trying to control the way that I am perceived or not perceived. But anyway, that's not the point here. The point is that I took the old Dodge Ram, old Joe, Pop's old truck, and I could get 2 scoops at a time. So that's what I did. I went and I got the 2 scoops, and I love this place because it was like, well, if you're going to come back, you can just pay me when you're done. And it's the small town, man. That's what I love Bowling Springs about there. I could name 4 or 5 places that could be true of, where I can pay you later, or I will shake your hand and promise that I will pay you, but there doesn't have to be any paperwork. So that was cool, man. And so she dumped the 2 things into the 2 scoops into the back of my truck, and I take off back to the house. I had already gone over to Mom's and gotten the steel rake and pitchfork, but the pitchfork was FUBAR, so we weren't able to use it. And so I'm brushing this mulch. I drive the truck into the backyard, dumping it out around the tree. Now, you don't want to put it around the trunk. I've learned. You don't want to volcano mulch it. You want to leave a couple inches around the base so you don't catch the root rot. But you want to get it all the way out to the drip line if you can. Well, these are massive trees, so there was no possible way really that I was going to be able to do all that. But this is the place under this tree is where the foundation tower of stone is. And so around it I don't remember how many stones, but stones that I could step on and ponder things, kind of a meditative walk path around the foundation tower of stone under this beautiful oak tree. And so I decided I'm going to mulch it all the way out around the foundation tower and all the way up underneath the stepping path, the stepping stones. And so I'm dumping all the mulch out, and this is work now. This is work because my muscles aren't used to doing this kind of stuff. Like, I got teacher muscles, and I've been working out a little bit, but I'm talking about like bending and pulling and pushing and different angles to try to pull it off the truck and whatever, man. But I was getting it done. Had my earbuds in, listening to some Widespread Panic, man, like just working. And so I went back again. I dumped those 2 mulches and then went back and got 2 more. And then went back and got 2 more. I mean, dust is flying. I got dirt all over me. I'm feeling good. Then I'm feeling good. Like a man who's doing some work, like some real work. So I go back and I finally get the final 2 scoops, and told her I'd probably be back tomorrow, but that was all for today. And began to spread that mulch out. Yeah, I don't know. It's probably 3 to 4 inches thick. At least 2. It's 2 to 4 inches thick depending on where you are. And it really does look good. And then I went back the next day. I went back on Friday and got 2 more scoops plus 1 more. That was all the cash I had left in the cash box. So what is that? 9 scoops total putting out, and ended up putting some in the front beds, like where my the Furman Bound 2029 sign sits, and where my light up dragonfly and sunflower and my praying, meditating, thankful frog statue all sit. And we'll put some flowers out there today. But the foundation tower setup is what I'm most proud of, and it's just beautiful. It's this oval, and back behind the tree doesn't go back as far because there's a fence back there, but there's this oval that comes out to these pacing stones, and in the middle I went and got some different colored mulch. It's just lighter color to put inside the foundation tower of stone. And I planted, what was that yellow flower we planted? I can't remember. I don't know about flowers. But I put a yellow flower in there in the middle, Sid and I went to Lowe's and picked out a yellow flower, and then got some other flowers to put around. I took 3 of the stones and put them around because I like 3s, and put some flower pots on them. And then I took a bench that my dad had made. Actually, I think he made it for me when back in the days when I was creating a prayer labyrinth, when I was mowing a prayer labyrinth in my backyard, and that was the bench where we would sit at the end. And so it's been the bench that you step up onto the trampoline with, but my kids are old enough to get up on the trampoline without that. So I put that on top of the mulch, and I put my huge turtle statue on top of it. And then there's a golden bucket that my friend Topher and Becky, they sent us a peace lily when Pop passed. And so I've always kept that bucket because it reminds me of that. And that's on one side of the tree. And on the other side, we've got this old rocking chair that was Sarah's grandmother's, Grandmama Vera. And so that reminds us of Vera and Glenn, because it's the foundation tower of stone, And so in some ways, these are people that have passed. And like inside is my dad's Buddha statue, and also all of the like different stones that I've taken from places where I remember things. Man, I wish I could remember the name of that yellow flower. I don't think it's a mum. No, that's for the fall. Marigold, that's it. It is. It's a marigold. And it doesn't really smell good, but that's fine. The mulch smells good. And there are other flowers. I put other flowers on top of those three stones, and I'll continue to try to fill it with color. I'm also mulched around dogwood and the yellow bell bush that we have there and set it up. Set it up real nice. So I'm pretty glad about that. And all that came about because of my tree, you know. And then I was at the river, been going to the river pretty regularly over this spring break. And I'm always impressed by the turtles that don't hop off the log when I pass by. I have a lot of respect for them. Like, they've seen me come by before. But a lot of them dive off, of course, and, you know, evolution or whatever has programmed them to do that so that they don't get devoured by whatever. But there was one turtle on a rock that was behind where I sit, and I had never seen a turtle like this before, and it was like it had its head bowed. You know, like it was out there sunning on the rock, but its head was down on the rock. And so I knew something wasn't right. And as I would walk up to it, it didn't go away. So I knew that this turtle had seen its end. But it did, like it had its head bowed, and I just sat there with that turtle for a while. And I was thankful. Like, I just had a lot of respect and gratitude for that turtle and for the turtles on that river that have taught me so much about patience and about, you know, how things change, but, you know, they come and go, right? Like seasons, what all the turtles have seen, and their willingness to just be turtles, to sit and bask in the sunlight. And that turtle had its head bowed, and I began to think about, like, I've been doing my stretches pretty good too, trying to get back into the fitness routine. And so, you know, I've talked about this before, my kind of yoga stretches that I do in the morning, and then I end up with some deep breaths and thinking about the kids and breathing in, you know, breathing out Yahweh and Christos and Ruah, the Spirit, and then sitting and meditating and thinking or not thinking. Honestly, when I begin thinking, I usually stop. And the way that it ends is I put my hand on my gut and one hand out, because that reminds me that my existence and my kids' existence, though intertwined, aren't dependent on each other. And I don't think I've ever said it that way, but like, just because my kids are going through something bad or just because I'm going through something tough doesn't mean it's got to be. It doesn't have to be fully shared. I don't know. I'm not explaining that the best possible way, but then I do a big hug of all my different parts of me, and then lift my hands up in surrender or giving. And then I end with a bow, and that's probably too much of my routine to just tell you. The whole point was to say that I end bowing, and I began to think about, like, what am I bowing to? Who am I bowing to? And here I go again with these words and their contexts and parameters. How does what and how does who define what I'm even trying to talk about? But I'm bowing. What am I bowing for? Why? And so, you know, I've been outspoken about the marketing and the profit of the so-called Christian industry. I don't mean to get into all that too much here. And the church's worship of all things MAGA is just gross. It's just gross. I mean, come on. It seems to be more and more just a cultural marker. You know, I don't discount the individual here. And what I mean by that will maybe become clear in just a bit. I believe the individual has awakening experiences, glimpses. I believe the individual wrestles with their own self-doubt and guilt and aspiration for the better, for the good, the beautiful, for redemption. And the Christ is. And I think that sentence is all you need. I decided that what I was bowing to was the abstract, and then I began to think about whether or not the should be before abstract. Something good and I will chew on for days. But the Christ is. And I don't discount the individual. But there is a tyranny of the collective. We can see it now. It's something, as I teach AP Government, I would talk about that the founding fathers, the framers of our system, they knew about the tyranny of the collective. They didn't trust the masses. That's why we have the system that we have. It isn't a pure democracy. They didn't want it to be. Because there's a real power in messaging and information. The inundation of data. The way that shapes groups of people. The control over thought and dissent. We've seen it in a variety of ways on all sides. What are you allowed to say? What are you allowed to think? And we certainly see it now. It isn't that this administration has freed us from being woke. It's just a different kind of thing. There are still limits on what you can say. In fact, in some ways, maybe even more. Dissent now is met with real federal power. You know, it's interesting that I think, you know, the word Confederate is it's heavy. It's got a lot of baggage. But a confederation is simply a government that where the power is on the fringe, where the power is like in the states and not in the federal government. And I think that a lot of people thought maybe that's what they were going after with this particular administration. And though there are things that come back to the states, if states and individuals in those states have disagreements over methods, over even ideas, if their views on things are different, then the federal power is what's being used to crush those things, limiting money or actually going after people with the law. So this administration isn't ending the tyranny of the collective. It's if in anything, it's making it worse. Because for whatever things you might think about MAGA and Trump, their control over messaging and information is phenomenal. It's phenomenal. The way that they can control tens of millions of people with just a few words. So how do we regain individual agency? How do we get back to, or maybe this is the answer to the question, creativity and wonder, and not just mindless, not just be mindless, numbed automatons? And that's something that I'm really wrestling with in my practice as a teacher, because the high school kids are like, conformity is their life. And so this messaging plus that age is very powerful. So how do I convince them that their individuality is worthy? In a time where if you express your individuality, and man, I don't know how you are receiving this, but there isn't one way to be an individual. You could be for or against. You can be for and then against, or vice versa. But I'm rambling. So let me move to me as an individual. One of the things that I had anticipated, mostly talking about here is my struggle to create a timeline. I've been interested in like mapping out the eras, of my life, and just retracing things, trying to put pieces together, and that timeline creates turmoil, like real physical turmoil in some instances, where I feel the tightness in my chest that I learned to recognize when I was doing therapy at Living Lotus. And so that makes me curious, not judgmental, but it makes me curious about what's happening there, like what's going on. The reality is that I'm trying to create an individual, because the word individual means not divisible, but that's baffling to me, because as Walt Whitman says, I contain multitudes. Actually sent a text to my oldest boy as I was doing this, told him that I was working on the timeline of my life, but it was kind of tumultuous because, as Whitman says, I contain multitudes. But when I got to 2004 on my worksheet, the whole energy in my soul changed, because when we created him. Whitman says it this way: the past and present wilt. I have filled them, emptied them, and proceed to fill my next fold of the future. It's been fun. It's been fun in some ways to employ my memory to reconsider the events of my life and remember, kindergarten teachers or whatever, man, like kickball teams. And I've already divided my life into first, second, and third life, as you know. And it's been interesting to look at key eras. It's wild to just write down 1978. And to think about the times where I don't have memories and different places that I lived, where that tightness pops up. Trying to pinpoint key moments. And in a way, it's a struggle to regain the one. And maybe that "the" doesn't need to be there. The struggle to regain one, capital O for sure. To become individual, not divisible. And I mean that in ways, me as a person, but also universal. That's a real struggle, because just for me, I contain multitudes. I mean, there are not just fragments of me, of my consciousness. Consciousness is a mother. There are not just fragments of me as I go through this practice, but entire persons in some case. Entire personalities, entire... How do I say it? I don't know. I mean, there are entire persons. That's the best way I know. Like parts of my consciousness that are out there that have been locked away, that have been divided. And so to think about becoming one with myself is an unfathomable challenge. And then to think about that in terms of universal, me becoming one with you, us becoming one, humanity becoming one, the universe becoming one, and maybe even to continue the thought process to somehow wrestle with the fact that our belief is that it already is. That's the promise of this Easter weekend, isn't it? The one. So it's a real struggle, and one that I look forward to going through, because I don't know. Like, do you feel this way? Do you feel divided and scattered about? Is that just me? Are there parts of you that you've locked away, that you feel shame towards, or anger, or sadness, that you don't feel anything for because you haven't accessed that person? I don't. Is that? Do you feel this way? Are you not an individual? I think it's healing. I do. I think it's healing, and I think I was given the tools from by my counselor, and so I don't know what types of things you might uncover, what types of things I might have to really wrestle with, things that might send me spiraling. I don't know, but I do think it's healing, because I think that healing and whole probably belong to the same family of word. One. Unity. Universal. Wendell Berry has a quote that struck me pretty good this week, and it said that he said, "It may be that when we no longer know what to do, we have come to our real work, and that when we no longer know which way to go, we have come to our real journey. The mind that is not baffled is not employed. The impeded stream is the one that sings." And I do find myself there, like, what now? Where? How? In a variety of areas of life. Like, I can't imagine. And so that's good news for me to listen to Wendell Berry's. That maybe now is when the real work begins. The impeded stream is the one that sings. There's a couple of azaleas out front that I had transplanted from another part of the yard some years ago, 6, 7, and they were always little and tiny. And really this year they just really exploded. And they're so colorful and way bigger than they used to be. And I noticed them. And maybe that's it. Maybe it's about noticing the azaleas. And maybe it's about noticing the azaleas and being glad to tell someone. Being glad for someone to tell me that they noticed the azaleas. That's challenging for me. Probably because I'm selfish. Probably because I'm self-absorbed. But it's like there should be more, there should be more to talk about than just the azaleas. But if it's one, so I'm going to have to come back to whether or not we should talk about the azaleas. I know the answer already. And maybe why that's so challenging. I put a 45-minute limit on Instagram, Facebook, on the Meta world. 45 minutes per day. Like when I go over 45 minutes, my little iPhone thing tells me I've gone over. Now I can easily ask it to unlock it, and I did the first day. The first day, I didn't realize how long it would take. And honestly, I thought I had given myself 45 minutes on Instagram and 45 minutes on Facebook, but that isn't what I did. I made it 45 minutes for both. And so I did ask for the phone to give me permission to spend 15 extra minutes the first day. But the next two, so far, I haven't even approached 45 minutes. I still check it. I still post like my morning quotes, and I'll post some pictures on my story. And later today, I'm going to probably post a little thing, like a real post on Instagram and all this kind of stuff. And I do go back and check it. And when the notifications light up, I message people back or comment on things or whatever. But I don't spend my time just scrolling through all the nonsense. And that's what I'm glad about. And because that just creates some time for other things. I've been spending 5 minutes doing this breathing app. I'm not going to keep paying for it. I'm not going to pay for it. But breathing in the morning, and then 10 minutes reading during my green tea time. And so far, I have spent 10 minutes 2 mornings in a row. And the first morning I read Philippians And this morning I read Colossians. And I think I went hunting. I did. I went hunting for things that are obviously in there, like being gracious and merciful to people and considering others better than yourselves and not being angry and not letting your words hurt others, and all that kind of stuff's in there. But it's easy to read these things and find the other things that say you got to defend your faith and that their enemy's going to be coming for you. And, like, don't let the philosophies of this world overtake you. There's plenty in there for anybody's worldview. And so it comes down to messaging. It comes down to how individuals wrestle with this and then wrestle with it with each other, rather than just having these. I don't know. I'm reading this book called Nexus, which is, it's not favorable to religion, but that's not what I'm talking about. It's just talking about the power of information and information systems. And right now, we are numbed automatons. I'll leave you with some funny stuff, some DT foibles here. I paid my taxes double. I did the TurboTax, and I was mad because this is the first year I didn't get any kind of refund because my kids are too old. So I paid the federal thing right away, and then I was like, well, I'm going to wait until April 15th to pay the state taxes. So I arranged it on there to draft on April 15th, but when April 15th came, it didn't post on my bank account. And I'm like, well, dang, I don't want to be late on my taxes. And so I Googled, does North Carolina even accept for you to do this? And Google said it didn't. And I looked for any emails of confirmation that I had set this up, and I couldn't find it. So I'm like, well, dang. It's just a couple $100 that I had to pay, but I'd be the guy, like, it's the regular people that come for the regular people first. They're not going to audit anybody. In fact, they're backing off on auditing the wealthy people, but they would come for me. So I got worried. And I was going to pay. I wanted to pay the money, and so I went ahead and arranged to pay it, and so I did. And then the next day, like 2 days later, the draft posted, not on April 15th, but like on April 17th. So I've paid double. Ugh. Everything I've seen is that they'll send me a check back at some point, and so kind of like I'm getting a refund after all. So that works out. DT Economics. It's the home stretch now. It's the home stretch for AP. We go back on Tuesday. It's going to be a wild week because we go back on Tuesday and prom is Friday. And so there'll be a whole bunch of people not here on Friday, not at school on Friday. And then we got another week after that, and then it's AP exams. And so I'll be in crazy mode trying to get these people to actually care and review. And it's the home stretch for tennis. It's looking rainy this coming week, but we'll practice this week, and then we'll get into regionals and dual team tournaments and all that kind of stuff. So I'll just be over here with my trees and my turtles and thinking about being an individual. So happy Easters, y'all. If you got nothing else to do, then watching Nacho Libre would be worth your time. Shout out to my guy Davey, who got to see the fish last night in Seattle. Miss you, brother. Don't forget to be live. Grace and peace.